Arlen Voss decided long ago that orbital stations were the universe's most expensive waiting rooms. He sat in the observation hall of Kepri's Reach with a cup of coffee that tasted suspiciously like someone had washed engine parts in it first. The transparent dome above him revealed a sprawling ocean of stars and the massive violet glow of the gas giant below. None of that improved the coffee. Arlen took another sip anyway and muttered, "Yep, still terrible. Consistency is important in a beverage." Around him, the observation hall buzzed with quiet conversations from travelers of half a dozen species. A tall insectoid merchant clicked impatiently while arguing with a floating translation drone. Two human miners debated whether their boss had intentionally installed slow elevators just to watch them suffer. Arlen leaned back in his chair and sighed. His cargo transport had been delayed for 6 hours because a docking computer insisted his ship technically qualified as aggressively rectangular, which apparently violated port aesthetic guidelines. Frontier freight work, he murmured to himself. The glamorous life. The seat beside him was empty until someone quietly sat down. Arlen glanced over. At first he assumed she was human. Dark hair, calm expression, the relaxed posture of someone comfortable sitting silently among strangers. But then he noticed the detail that didn't match. Her ears were long. Not dramatically alien, not monstrous, just longer than a human's and tapering gently upward. The shape gave her a strangely elegant appearance, like someone who belonged in a palace but had accidentally boarded the wrong shuttle. She didn't say anything. She simply looked out through the dome at the stars. Arlen nodded politely. "Good view today." She turned slightly toward him. "It seems peaceful," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. Arlen snorted. "Peaceful is a strong word. Last time I was in this system, 2 cargo captains tried to settle a contract dispute by launching refrigerated chickens at each other." She blinked. "Chickens." "Frozen ones," Arlen clarified. "Much more aerodynamic." The woman stared at him for a moment, then she smiled. It was small and quiet but genuine. Arlen held up his cup. "Coffee. I do not think my species has prepared for that level of danger." "Wise choice," he said. "I'm 90% sure this stuff is classified as a cleaning solvent on 3 planets." She turned her attention back toward the stars. For a while neither of them spoke. Ships moved slowly outside the dome, their engines glowing like drifting embers. Eventually she asked, "You travel often?" Arlen laughed. "I'm a freight navigator. If I stop traveling, someone somewhere stops receiving toilet paper shipments. Civilization would collapse in under a week." "That seems important." "Exactly," he said proudly. "I'm basically the backbone of society." A service drone rolled past them, paused, and displayed a message on its screen. "Diosking Bay 12 DLAYD, estimated wait, 4 hours." Arlen stared at it. 4 more hours, he groaned. "Fantastic, I could grow a beard in that time." The drone beeped sympathetically and rolled away. The woman tilted her head slightly. "Why remain here if the wait is so long?" "Because my ship's autopilot locked me out after I called it a glorified toaster. Apparently it took that personally." "That seems unlikely. You've never met my autopilot." She laughed quietly again. Arlen noticed that despite her calm behavior, she asked questions in a thoughtful way. Not the usual curious tourist questions about human culture. Her curiosity felt deeper, more deliberate. "What are the frontier worlds like?" she asked. "Dusty," Arlen said immediately. "Everything is dusty. If you build a colony on a perfectly clean planet, the dust will appear out of pure spite. And the people? Stubborn, resourceful, slightly insane." "That sounds admirable." "It is," Arlen said, "until someone tries to repair a fusion reactor using duct tape and optimism." The woman considered that. "Does that succeed?" "Once." Her eyes widened slightly. "Once is enough to encourage bad habits." They sat quietly for a moment again. Outside the dome, a distant cargo ship ignited its engines and drifted toward a jump gate. The woman spoke again. "You enjoy traveling, don't you?" Arlen shrugged. I complain about it constantly, he said. But yeah, I like seeing new places, makes the universe feel less predictable. Predictability is comforting to many people. Sure, Arlen said. But unpredictable is where the good stories happen. She studied him thoughtfully. And what do humans usually do when they encounter the unknown? Arlen thought for a moment. Step 1, he said, we stare at it. Step 2, we poke it with a stick. And step 3, run away if the stick explodes. She laughed again, this time a little louder. Several nearby travelers glanced over briefly before returning to their conversations. Arlen grinned. Don't worry, he said. Human exploration strategy has been refined over centuries. It sounds chaotic. Oh, it is, he said proudly. She looked out at the stars again. Yet you still explore. Of course, Arlen said. He leaned back in his chair and stretched. The universe is big, he added. Someone has to go see what's out there. For a moment she didn't respond. Then she asked quietly, and if what is out there is powerful? Arlen shrugged. Then hopefully it has a sense of humor. He lifted his terrible coffee again. Because if it doesn't, he said, humanity is in serious trouble. Arlen tapped the rim of his cup and stared at the stars. Well, he said, this is usually the part of a station visit where someone tries to sell me illegal navigation charts. Illegal charts? The woman asked. Maps that claim they know secret shortcuts through hyperspace, Arlen said. They never work. One time the shortcut sent me 3 light years off course and directly into a meteor shower. That sounds dangerous. Oh, it was, Arlen said. But on the bright side, the meteors destroyed the chart seller's ship first. The woman covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. You appear very calm about danger. I'm a freight navigator, Arlen said. If I panicked every time something exploded, I'd never get anything delivered. She looked thoughtful. Do many things explode during your work? Arlen stared at her, statistically. Yes, more than 0, he said. That seems concerning. Only if you enjoy predictable days. She smiled again and folded her hands in her lap. Arlen studied her for a moment. You ask a lot of questions. Is that unusual? Not really, he said. But most people ask things like, what's the fastest route to Vega? Or do you know a mechanic who doesn't charge like a pirate? And my questions are different. You asked why humans explore the unknown, Arlen said. That's a big question. Is it? Yeah, he said. Usually people are more worried about whether the station cafeteria has edible soup. She tilted her head slightly. Does it? Arlen leaned closer and whispered dramatically. No one knows. Surely someone has tried it. They disappeared, he said. She laughed again, a soft sound that seemed to make the long wait a little less dull. A service drone rolled by again, projecting a floating notice. DOCKING delay extended estimated wait. 5 hours. Arlen groaned loudly. 5 hours now. At this rate my ship will evolve into a new species before I board it. The woman glanced at the message. You appear frustrated. I am, Arlen said. My autopilot already thinks it's smarter than me. If I leave it alone too long it'll start writing philosophical essays about navigation. Would that be bad? Yes, he said, because it'll be right. She seemed amused by that. For a moment they both watched a line of cargo ships moving slowly toward a distant jump gate. Then she asked another question. You mentioned frontier worlds earlier. Yeah. What is it like living there? Arlen scratched his chin. Imagine building a town on a planet where the weather hates you. The gravity is slightly wrong, and your closest neighbor is 3 star systems away. That sounds lonely. Sometimes, Arlen admitted, but it's also exciting. How? Because everything is new, he said. New land, new skies, new problems. Problems? Oh yes, Arlen said. Frontier colonists have a special talent for discovering problems no one knew existed. Such as? Colonists on Brantor Prime once discovered their planet had microscopic creatures that ate power cables. Her eyes widened. They ate electricity. Apparently it tasted spicy. And how did the colonists solve that? They started wrapping the cables in pepper spray. She blinked. That seems unusual. It worked, Arlen said proudly. She thought about that for a moment. You humans are very inventive. We're very stubborn, Arlen corrected. A small silence passed between them. The woman studied the movement of ships beyond the dome. Then she asked quietly, "Do humans ever fear what they might encounter in deep space?" Arlen shrugged. "Of course we do. Yet you still go." "Well, yeah," he said. "Why?" Arlen leaned back and stretched his arms. "Because the universe is interesting," he said, "and because if we don't go look, someone else will." "That sounds competitive." "It is," Arlen said. "You should see what happens when two exploration teams discover the same planet." "What happens?" "They argue about who gets to name it." "And how is that decided?" "Usually whoever plants the first flag." "That seems simple." "It isn't," Arlen said. "One team once tried to plant a flag during a hurricane." "That seems foolish." "It was," he said, "but technically they won." She shook her head slowly, still smiling. Then she looked at him again. "You speak very openly." "Should I not?" "In many interspecies meetings," she said, "people are more cautious." Arlen snorted. "I'm off duty. I'm not representing humanity. I'm just a guy waiting for a delayed cargo ship." "That sounds relaxing." "It would be if the coffee wasn't trying to dissolve my tongue." She laughed again. Then she asked, "Do you believe powerful people should be treated differently?" Arlen shrugged. "Depends what you mean by powerful." "Leaders, rulers, admirals." "Oh," he said. He thought for a moment. "Honestly, yes. I think most powerful people are just regular people with bigger problems," he said. She watched him carefully. "And if you met someone very important?" "I probably wouldn't know what to say," Arlen admitted. "Why?" "Because important people expect formal conversations," he said. "And I mostly talk about exploding cargo containers." "That could be refreshing." Arlen grinned. "Well, if I ever meet a galactic emperor," he said, "I'll tell them about the time a shipment of self-inflating emergency rafts filled an entire docking bay." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "That happened." 300 rafts, he said. The station looked like it had grown a yellow forest. She laughed again. Several travelers nearby glanced toward them with mild curiosity. The woman leaned back slightly and looked at the stars once more. "Perhaps powerful people would enjoy such stories," she said softly. Arlen shrugged. "Maybe," he said. Then he added, "assuming they're allowed to sit in waiting rooms like normal people." Arlen stretched his legs and glanced at the station clock floating above the hall. "Only 4 hours and 52 minutes left," he said. "Time is flying if you measure it with a broken engine." The woman looked at the clock. "You measure time strangely." "Freighter pilots measure everything strangely," Arlen replied. "Last month I measured distance using sandwich consumption." "How does that work?" "Well," he said, "one sandwich equals roughly 2 hours of boredom." "And how many sandwiches is a long trip?" "About 12 regrets." She smiled again. A maintenance drone rolled past them humming softly. Art. "Watched it go, see that?" he said. "Yes. That drone is living its best life. It appears to be cleaning the floor." "Exactly," Arlen said. "No deadlines, no cargo inspections, no autopilot judging your life decisions." "Your autopilot judges you." "Oh, absolutely," Arlen said. "Last week it suggested I read a navigation manual." "And that offended you?" "It implied I needed improvement," Arlen said. "Machines should know their place." She tilted her head slightly. "Pilots say that often." Arlen looked at her. "You've spoken with pilots before." "A few." "Let me guess," he said. "They complained about docking fees." She smiled but didn't answer. Arlen leaned back in his chair again and stared at the stars beyond the dome. "You know what the weirdest part of frontier travel is?" he asked. "What?" "Silence," he said. "When you're far from everything, space gets quiet in a way that feels almost heavy." "Heavy?" "Yeah," he said. "Like the universe is waiting to see what you'll do next." She thought about that. "And what do you usually do?" Turn on music, Arlen said immediately. That seems less philosophical. It works, he said. Nothing defeats cosmic dread like terrible rock music from Earth. Terrible. Oh yes, Arlen said proudly. The worse the music, the better it works. She laughed softly. A moment later the lights in the observation hall flickered once. Arlen glanced upward. Huh. Is that unusual? She asked. Not really, he said. Stations flicker all the time. The lights flickered again. Across the hall, a large display panel switched from advertisements to a system notice. Unidentified signal detected. Scanning. Arlen raised an eyebrow. Well, he said, that's mildly concerning. What kind of signal? The woman asked. No idea, Arlen said. But the word unidentified rarely leads to calm afternoons. Several travelers in the hall began murmuring as the display updated. Multiple contacts detected. Range. Outer system. Arlen leaned forward. Multiple contacts. That suggests ships, the woman said calmly. How many ships? Arlen asked the screen. The display paused for a moment. Then the number appeared. Contacts detected. 37. Arlen whistled. That's a decent traffic jam. The number changed again. Contacts detected, 82. Arlen leaned closer. Okay, that's less of a jam and more of a parade. The number updated again. Contacts detected, 146. All right, Arlen said. Now I'm curious. The woman watched the screen without reacting. You seem calm, Arlen said. Should I be worried? Well, he said, 146 unidentified ships appearing suddenly isn't exactly routine. The number updated again. Contacts detected, 203. Arlen stared. Either someone invited the entire galaxy, or we're about to witness something very dramatic. The station speakers crackled to life. Attention all personnel and visitors, a voice announced. Long-range sensors have detected a large fleet entering system space. Arlen glanced around as the observation hall grew quieter. A fleet, he repeated. Yes, the woman said softly. Do fleets usually arrive without sending messages first? Not usually. Good, Arlen said, because surprise fleets make me nervous. Outside the dome, several distant lights began to appear among the stars. Ships, large ones. Arlen squinted. Wow, he said quietly, those are big. The woman watched them silently. More lights appeared and more. The shapes grew clearer as they moved closer to the station. Arlen rubbed his eyes. Okay, he muttered. I may need stronger coffee. How many ships do you see? She asked. A lot, he said. The system display updated again. Contacts detected, 312. Arlen leaned back slowly. Well, he said, this officially qualifies as a fleet. The announcement returned. Station security is monitoring the situation. All visitors remain calm. Arlen looked at the woman beside him. Remain calm, he repeated. Yes. That's never a good sign, he said. Outside the dome, the approaching ships began spreading into organized formations. Arlen frowned. They're aligning. Interesting, the woman said. Yeah, he replied. Warships move like that. The woman didn't respond. Arlen looked at her again. You're still very calm. She folded her hands quietly. I am curious. About what? She glanced at the approaching fleet. About their timing. Arlen blinked. Timing. Yes. He scratched his head. Are you expecting someone? She thought about that for a moment. Then she said gently. Perhaps. Arlen laughed. Well, if those ships are here to pick someone up, he said, I hope they validate parking. Arlen leaned forward in his chair and squinted through the dome. Well, he said slowly, those are definitely not delivery ships. The woman glanced at him. How can you tell? Delivery ships look tired, Arlen said. Scratches, mismatched cargo pods, captains yelling at their engines. And those look organized, he said. Nothing in freight transport is that organized. Outside, the fleet continued moving into precise positions. The station display updated again. Contacts confirmed, 417. Arlen whistled. That's a lot of ships. Yes, the woman said calmly. You don't sound surprised. I am observing. That's a very polite way to say you're not panicking. Arlen scratched his chin and looked at the screen again. 400 ships, he muttered. Someone either brought an army or a really dramatic escort. The station speakers crackled again. Attention all visitors. Unknown fleet has entered defensive observation range. Security protocols are active. Arlen sighed. There it is. What? The woman asked. The don't panic announcement, he said. It always means someone somewhere is panicking. A maintenance worker across the hall loudly said, I'm not panicking. His coworker replied, You're standing on a chair. That's tactical elevation. Arlen chuckled. See, he said, perfectly calm. Outside, the fleet began shifting again. Large ships rotated slowly in space. Their formation tightened. Arlen narrowed his eyes. Okay, that's interesting. What is? They're lining up. For what purpose? I don't know, he said. But fleets usually do that before something important. The woman watched quietly. The station display changed again. Fleet signal detected. Translating. Arlen leaned forward again. Ooh, he said. Incoming message. The translation paused. Then the screen displayed only a single line. Ceremonial formation initiated. Arlen blinked. Ceremonial. Yes, the woman said softly. That's not the word I expected, he said. What word did you expect? Prepare for battle maybe, Arlen said. Ceremonial fleets are a lot friendlier. Outside the dome, the ships completed their alignment. Hundreds of vessels arranged themselves in perfect symmetry. Arlen stared. Wow. Yes, the woman said. Either someone very important is here, Arlen said, or these pilots are extremely bored. The lights along the ships began glowing. Not weapon systems, not shields, something brighter. Energy patterns rippled across the hulls. Arlen pointed. That definitely looks ceremonial. What does it remind you of? She asked. A salute, he said slowly. A salute. Yeah, Arlen said. Military ships sometimes do that during state visits. He looked around the hall. But unless a galactic emperor is hiding in the snack bar, I don't see who they're saluting. The woman didn't answer. The station lights flickered again. Then the main doors of the observation hall slid open. Several tall figures entered. They wore armored uniforms that shimmered with faint energy patterns. Their ears were long. Just like the woman sitting beside him, Arlen noticed immediately. Hey, he whispered. They look like. The guards moved calmly across the hall. People stepped aside instinctively. No one spoke. The guards stopped a few meters from Arlen and the woman. Then something happened that made Arlen forget how breathing worked. Every guard bowed, not slightly, deeply. One of them spoke. Your Radiance, the fleet has arrived. Arlen slowly turned his head toward the woman beside him. His brain tried to process several thoughts at once. Thought number 1, Your Radiance. Thought number 2, Fleet. Thought number 3, Oh no, the woman stood calmly. Yes, she said. The guard straightened. The Armada awaits your command. Arlen raised a finger slowly. Excuse me, he said. The guards looked at him. Just a quick question, Arlen added. No one answered. He pointed toward the dome. The 400 warships outside. Yes, the guard said. They're yours. The woman looked at Arlen. They belong to my people. Arlen blinked, then blinked again, then leaned back in his chair. Well, he said. He rubbed his forehead. I feel like this conversation just escalated. The woman looked slightly amused. You appear surprised. Surprised, Arlen said. I told you a story about exploding cargo containers. Yes. I also complained about docking fees. Yes. I may have insulted station coffee in front of a galactic ruler. She smiled gently. The coffee deserved it. Arlen stared at the fleet again. Hundreds of ships holding formation. Lights glowing across their hulls, still saluting. Then he looked back at her. So, he said carefully, you're important. Arlen sank back into his chair, staring at the fleet holding position outside the dome. 400 ships, each radiating power and precision. aligned perfectly as if choreographed by some cosmic conductor. He rubbed the back of his neck and muttered, "Well, that escalated from bad coffee to galactic ceremony in about 60 minutes. The woman beside him, his conversation partner, confidant in absurdity, and now officially a galactic ruler, remained seated, her posture relaxed. She didn't radiate the overwhelming authority he had imagined. Instead, she seemed almost amused by the spectacle outside. "You really aren't worried?" he asked. "Worry serves little purpose," she said softly. "Observing, however, is useful." "Observing," Arlen repeated. "Yeah, I suppose staring at 400 armed ships counts as useful." She turned her head slightly and offered him a calm smile. "You speak freely." Arlen scratched his head. "Well, you didn't exactly announce, 'Greetings, human, please refrain from casual commentary while the fleet salutes me.' I figured honesty might, I don't know, keep me alive." She laughed quietly. The sound carried through the hall like a ripple, soft and steady. "You spoke about exploding cargo containers," she said, "and docking fees. That honesty, it was refreshing." Arlen blinked. "You mean me rambling about stuff that should probably stay in the pilot lounge actually made you feel respectful?" "Yes," she said. "Most people attempt careful formality, empty compliments, or exaggerated deference. You did none of that." Arlen leaned back and looked at the fleet again. "I may have just accidentally achieved interstellar diplomacy." "Perhaps," she said, her tone half amusement, half sincerity. A guard approached quietly. "Your Radiance, the fleet stands ready for departure on your command." She stood fluid and graceful, yet unhurried. She did not demand attention, did not radiate intimidation. Instead, she moved with calm authority that felt natural, almost effortless. Arlen's eyes followed her. "Wow," he said. "I feel like I just sat next to someone who could rearrange the galaxy with a single thought, and she was asking me about my sandwich strategy." She paused beside him. "You said earlier that humans find the universe less frightening when shared with strangers." "I did." He laughed nervously. "I probably just offended your entire fleet with tales of malfunctioning autopilots and stolen cargo." "You were sincere," she said simply. "That sincerity matters." Arlen scratched his chin. "So, I just helped improve interspecies relations by complaining." "Yes," she said, "complaining honestly." He smiled, a little sheepish, a little proud. "I'll put that on my resume. Freighter navigator, expert in complaints, accidental diplomat." The fleet outside began shifting slowly, forming a corridor of light through the system. Arlen's jaw dropped. "Okay, that's spectacular. I didn't even know fleets could do that without firing anything." She glanced at him. "You will see it again, but only if you wish." Arlen hesitated. "Do I get to keep sitting here while you command 400 warships?" "Only if you continue to speak honestly," she said. He laughed. "I'll try my best, though I may occasionally mention docking fees again." She nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "That can be arranged." The guards gestured, signaling it was time to leave. She turned toward the dome, raising her hand in a subtle command. The fleet outside responded instantly, engines humming in perfect harmony. Arlen watched, still seated, as the ships began their slow, ceremonial passage. He felt a shift inside himself. Not fear, not awe, not the helplessness of a civilian facing power, but something warmer, something that reminded him of why he had chosen this life. The stars weren't just distant points of light anymore. They were places to explore, to meet others, to share honest moments, even if those moments happened beside a galactic ruler. As the doors of the observation hall slid open for her departure, she paused once more beside him. "You are a curious human," she said softly. "Do not lose that curiosity, for it will carry you further than any fleet ever could." Arlen swallowed, nodding. "I'll try. I may also continue talking about exploding cargo if that's still okay." She laughed lightly. "That is always okay." And then she was gone, stepping into a line of guards as the hall seemed to breathe again. The hum of the fleet outside softened, yet its presence remained, a silent testament to power tempered by patience and trust. Arlen leaned back, his coffee long gone, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Well," he said to no one in particular, "next time I sit in an observation hall, maybe I should bring better stories, or at least more sandwiches." Somewhere in the distance, the fleet aligned once more, light cascading through the void, a signal of respect, of order, and of something Arlen couldn't quite name, but now felt he understood in a small, human way. And as he watched the corridor of glowing ships drift through space, he realized that sometimes the most extraordinary encounters weren't about witnessing power. They were about sharing a simple, honest conversation with someone who happened to command it all. Arlen Voss smiled, quietly certain that the universe, vast and unpredictable, had just grown